Hey, family, it is another opportunity for us to be together in a spiritual growth and self care workshop. As you all come in, we want to give you a moment just to kind of gather ourselves into this space that is sacred. It's a space of growth, a space of development, and where we're going to learn practical ways to care for ourselves and the finance, the harvest that God has blessed our life with. Hey, family, we see you coming on. And as you do that, do me a favor, please say hello. As you come into the room, we're excited. Our special guest is here, and you are here, and the presence of the Lord is here, and we're going to grow together. Hey, family, as soon as you come on, be sure to share, say hello to us, and grab a pen and some paper because you're going to need it. We're going to grow together today in this workshop, and I know that we will all be better because we are here. Just before I greet our special guest, I want to allow us to just come on, get the family in. Come on, everybody you know who has who has finances that they can grow in and mature in their development of managing their money. Come on, let's get the family in. Hello, Sister Yoli Thomas, we see you. Hey, I see y'all coming in, family. Hello. Sister Sandra Picott is in the building. I see LB is here. Hello. Come on, you all. I'm excited that our special guest is in. And listen, we're about to learn something tonight, y'all. I'm telling you, this is one of those empowerment experiences where we are better because we were here. All right. I'm excited. All right. It's almost time for us to actually get the show on the road because there is a literal, no pun intended, there is a wealth of information that we are going to get together. And I want to first introduce a member of our church family. You know her face and her name. She leads our Prosperity Partners ministry at St. John Baptist Church, and she's here with us. I want to introduce hello to our one and only sister, Melissa Grant. Good evening. How are you?
I am well, thank you. Good evening. I'm really excited about tonight's session.
I am too. As a matter of fact, I'm excited because God proves to us how much He cares for us by who God connects us to. The currency of the kingdom, I've heard it say, is relationship. And tonight is proof that God loves the St. John Baptist Church community and our extended family because we have with us tonight none other than the one and the only nationally syndicated personal finance columnist for the Washington Post. Her name is Michelle Singletary. Hello, thank you for being here. Good evening, Mrs. Singletary.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here tonight with you all, or if you're watching it later, whatever time of day, I'm really pleased.
Listen, we're so excited. We are hungry for information and knowledge. Even scripture says that the people perish for a lack of knowledge. What I'm excited about most tonight is a lot of times we know how to pray for the blessing. We know how to, if you will, dance for the harvest. But I don't know that we give enough attention to how to manage what it is that God provides. And so I know that this self-care and spiritual growth workshop is going to give us practical strategies to manage the blessing. And so I'm excited just that you're here and that we're going to have this amazing conversation tonight.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I know I wish I could be there in person, like many people, the distancing, but I think that it's still going to be a great evening, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments as we go along in the presentation.
Excellent. All right. So, Sister Melissa, you and I will go to the back. Let's get the presentation up. And Ms. Singletary, we're here for you, and you can take it away.
Great. Well, again, welcome. So glad. And I'm always so happy when I see churches and the body of Christ talking about money. It is not taboo. In fact, many scriptures in the Bible relates to how you handle your finances. So tonight we're going to talk about the 5 steps to thrive during a financial crisis and beyond. And just a little way of background. So I am the full-time staff personal finance columnist for the Washington Post. But I also direct the Prosperity Partners Ministry at First Baptist Church of Glenarden in Prince George's County, Maryland. It's a very large ministry from year to year, about 150 to 200 people who stay a whole year in the program. We meet every month for about 2 or 3 hours on the first Saturday of the month. You're welcome to join. It's open to anybody. There's no cost, and we talk about money. And I tell you, we can talk for 5 hours every Saturday when we do it. So I would look forward to seeing you there at that ministry. But I don't have a ton of time, so I want to get right to what we're going to talk about. So Reverend Ricky, if you would expand to go to the next slide for me, please. You there, Reverend Ricky? If you would go to the next slide for me. I think we have a little technical difficulty, but that's okay. We're going to work it through. There we go. Thank you. See, we ain't gonna let the devil stop us. So the 5 steps to thrive during a financial crisis and beyond. So we're going to talk about 5 things. I hope you have your pencil and paper and take some good notes. So the first one is triage your budget. We're going to talk about what does that mean to triage your budget. And then secondly, be careful with credit. Lots of us are, in trouble with credit because of things that, we're having a good time, going on vacation and things like that. We're going to talk about the dangers of that. And then number 3, stick to a budget. I know y'all don't like to hear that word. I know you don't. I know you don't. But I am in love with budgeting. I just love budgeting. Because my grandmother raised me and my siblings. There were 5 of us. And can you imagine? And she did not take public assistance. She took the healthcare portion. She did not take the cash portion. So for 5 grandchildren, never making more than about $13,000 a year, she was able to take care of us. And how did she do that? She followed a budget. And then become an informed investor. It's not enough to just budget. You got to put that money to work for you. And no, it doesn't mean buying Bitcoins or rushing out to buy gold. It's a nice, solid way to increase your wealth. And guess what, you all? You too can be a millionaire in your 401k or your TSP, which is a savings plan if you're a federal government worker. And then finally, be content. Now, as Christians, we all sort of know a little bit about that, but you want to have financial wealth, you want to prosper, you got to learn how to be content. And we're going to talk a little bit about how do you do that. So Ricky, if you could advance to the next slide for me. So triage your budget. You can go to the next one for me. So I'm going to walk through what you do in scenarios in which you have there's a pandemic or an economic crisis. Because guess what? This pandemic will end, right? I mean, it's not forever. And guess what? Right after that, in a couple years or 3 years or 4 years or maybe even 10, there's going to be another economic crisis. So what do you do with your money? And what do I mean by triage? So I don't know if you've ever had to go to the emergency room and it's been overly crowded with a lot of people. And let's say you went in with a sprained ankle and you're sitting there for hours and hours and someone comes in after you, walks up to the desk and they take them right back. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, hold up. I was here with my little sprained ankle. And the doctor will say, well, listen, this person was having a heart attack. So we have to take her right back. And so when you have financial disruption in your income, you have to triage your budget just like they triage patients. You got to pay the things that are most important, like that victim of a heart attack, right? It's not that your sprained ankle is not important, like the credit card debt, it's not important. It's still important, but you've got to focus on the crisis at hand. And in this case is if you have lost your job or you've been furloughed. So furlough meaning you don't have no money. They said, go home. We don't know when you're coming back, but go home. So this is what you're going to pay. You're going to pay your rent, your mortgage, your auto loan, so that maybe you go look for another job, utilities, and child support. That's really all you should be worried about. And I know you're like, well, what about my other debts? Your credit card debts, your medical debts, your student loans. You have to ask them to put it on pause. Don't ignore the debt. I want you to contact your creditors. Let them know what's going on and say, I have lost my job. I'm on furlough. I can't pay you. Can you put my payments on pause? And most of the creditors will work with you. And if they don't, they don't. We're not telling you to run away from that debt, but in a crisis, you have to triage your debt and pay what's more important. Put a roof over your head and food on the table. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So let's say you've had a pay cut. So in this pandemic, people have been working but they haven't been earning the same amount of money. Or maybe, you used to be getting all this overtime. So a lot of that overtime you incorporated in your budget. And so it wasn't extra money. It was so that you could continue paying everything. So if you had a pay cut, it's much similar to if you lose your job. You're going to pay your rent. You're going to pay your auto loan. If you have one, you pay your utilities and your child support, and you're going to put on pause those other bills because, again, you got to take care of the necessities. And I know some of you are really good money managers, and it just kills you to not pay these other bills. And you're trying to do that, but at the risk of maybe not having all your rent payment or not having enough for food. So I need you to be okay with that. And this is where our faith comes in, right? I mean, things are not going the way they should be, but you're going to use some of your faith and you're going to pay what you absolutely have to do. Continue to remember that patient in the emergency room, you were the heart attack victim, and that sprained ankle got to work. You go to the next one for me, please. So let's say you have stable income. Now, there have been millions of people who are unemployed because of the pandemic, but there are lots of people who have kept their jobs, kept their income, and you're actually doing really well. So you're going to definitely continue to pay all the necessities, the rent, the mortgage, utilities, child support. And hey, what? Now you get to catch up on those credit card debts. You get to build up your savings. You get to speed your student loans up. We're going to talk about that a little later, about those student loans. And guess what? You're going to help other people. If you have had stable income during this pandemic, but you haven't been eating out, you canceled that vacation, you haven't been shopping, you maybe have some extra money in your budget. This is again after you've made sure that you are trying to pay down your debt. But say you don't have any debt and you're doing really well. You're like, what am I going to do with all this money? Well, guess what? You need to be your brother's keeper. This is a time that you help people. I know you're probably thinking, well, what about that person? I'm having that money. Well, why should I help them? It's not your time to be wagging your finger at people. Yeah, they were irresponsible, but that's your sister, that's your brother, that's your cousin, and they need help with their rent. They need help with food. And so you want to put aside that judgment and help them out. Now, how do you make sure your money is used responsibly? I had a relative who I'm not always great with her money. She didn't come to me because she wouldn't, right? She's very proud. She wouldn't come. But I heard through another relative that she was struggling. And so my husband and I decided to pay for her rent for 2 months. We called the rental office, found out what it was, made sure the money went right to the rental office. And that's what I need you to do. You don't have to wait for people to ask for help. You know who needs help. You just say, hey, give me your utility bill. Let me help you out for a couple months. Or let me pay your rent or your car payment. In the last recession, the Great Recession, my sister was a federal contract worker and she lost her job like many did during the Great Recession. And because my husband and I are faithful savers and we had, our money, we have an actually family and friends fund that we put to the side. And we were able to make her car payment for a year because that's how long it took her to find new employment. And didn't ask for the money back. We don't believe in lending people money and never missed it, never asked for it, never made her feel bad about it. This is what we did. And we made the payments right to her car lender for her to take that burden off her shoulders. So, and then, Ricky, can you go to the next slide for me, please? So you might be wondering right now about this pandemic and your money. And so as you well know, there's been 2 rounds of stimulus payments. There's about to be a third round. And so in the first round, you got $1,200 if you met certain income levels and $500 for your dependent child, 16 or younger. In the second round, it was $600 for individuals, $1,200 for couples, $600 for your dependents. Now, in this third round, that looks like it's going to pass tomorrow, Wednesday, March the 10th. There's going to be $1,400 for individuals, $2,800 for couples married filing jointly, and $1,400 for any dependent that you claim on your return. That's for your little bitty kids, for your college student. Maybe you are taking care of a disabled adult child, or maybe you have claimed your parents or elderly relative because you're caring for them. They get $1,400, or you get $1,400 for each dependent. And there's a lot of other provisions in the it's called the American Rescue Plan, pushed by the Democrats. And so if you check out the Washington Post website tomorrow, or even actually by tomorrow morning, I've written a column about all the provisions that give extra cash to parents. The child tax credit has been increased. If you take the credit for dependent care, that's been increased. So there's lots of things in the recent stimulus package. So you want to make sure you read about it and take advantage of everything that is available to you, especially if you had a disruption in your income. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So let's talk about the first, be careful with credit. That was like number one. So I love that picture. Are you drowning in debt? And here's the thing. It was the hardest thing for me to get people to save during good times. People were like, oh, I got this. I got a good job. So you go along, you're making just the minimum payments, and up here comes a once in a lifetime pandemic. Lost your job, and disruption of income, or maybe not you, but your spouse or somebody in your house. And one of the reasons why you're panicking during the pandemic is because you got a lot of credit card debt. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So here's the thing. I don't know if you ever saw this movie, but I always say what haunts me is I see debt people. I'm not going to give the movie away, but basically, because I'm syndicated in the Post and around the country, I get letters and emails all the time from people in debt. And it just breaks my heart how much that debt is weighing on people, so that when there is a storm, you can't weather it well because you're carrying all this debt on your books. Go to the next slide for me, please. Look at the overall household debt. So, during the Great Recession, everybody kind of pulled back and like, we learned our lesson. No, you didn't. So look at the amount of debt, 893 billion, that's with a B, and credit card debt of $1.54 trillion in student loans and $1.34 trillion in car loans. Y'all love y'all cars. I mean, you just be driving your wealth away. I don't understand that. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And so we are overwhelmed with the debt. And so when we get our paycheck, our money is already obligated. I had a TV show for TV One, and I remember interviewing this young couple, and the young husband was saying how he hated payday. Can't even imagine hating payday. I said, how do you hate payday? He said, Miss Singletary, by the time my money hits the bank, it is so obligated. It's going here and there for debts and all this kind of stuff that I don't even really get to enjoy the money because it's already going out for all this debt that we had. They had student loan debt. They had a mountain of credit card debt, mortgage debt, car debt. It was just debt all over the place. And so I want to get you to a position where you can get rid of that debt, and you hate debt. I want you to hate debt. I hate debt. If that was a person, I'd slap it just like that. I hate that. And if you have that posture, as Scripture talks about that, like that you are a slave to the lender. In Proverbs, these husbands don't want to be a borrower. So go to the next slide for me, Reverend Ricky. So the average credit card balance is in the range of $6,000 to $8,000. That means that somebody is rolling that debt from month to month, and you might be sitting there watching. Nobody can't see you, so you don't have to tell nobody. But you're probably saying, "Is that all?" I mean, people $20,000 in credit card debt, $30,000 in credit card debt, rolling it from month to month. And here's the thing: if you can't pay off your credit card balance by the next due date, whatever it is that you're putting on that credit card, you cannot afford. It's as simple as that. Now, I understand when times get tight, people use the credit because they don't have an emergency fund. So, I'm not here to judge you. You did what you did. But moving forward, I want to get you into the position where you are not putting anything on your credit card that you can't pay off by the next due date. Next one for me, please. So approximately 77%, not 77% of students were 3 months or more behind on their student loans when the pandemic started to hit. And that's really tragic because, student loan, you can't really get rid of those in bankruptcy, and it can really affect a lot of things. They can start taking money out of your paycheck. They can take your your tax refund if you have back student loan debt. And so it's weighing really heavy on a lot of families because a lot of people went to colleges that they can't afford. And you're like, well, wait a minute, Michelle, didn't they tell me that going to college was an investment? Yeah, okay, except you didn't have to go send your kid out of state. They didn't have to stay on campus. Why didn't you send them to community college for 2 years and then let them transfer to the four-year university? Let them commute, stay at home, maybe work for a year and then go to college. I mean, all the debt you're taking on is just putting you and your child decades in debt. People who are about to retire, they still have their student loan debt and they have a student loan debt from their child. And we really want you to get out of that right now in a couple months. Some of you might be deciding about sending your child to college, and you're going to just like let that little 18-year-old say where they want to go. And I get it. If your kid did everything that you asked them to do, they got good grades, they applied for things, and you're like, well, how can I let them go? You can say, can I tell you something? Can I tell you one of the most powerful words in the English language? It's like, oh my gosh, can I tell you? Can I tell you? It's called no. Now, I have great kids, really smart kids. My oldest wanted to go to UNC, University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Beautiful campus, like in a movie type of campus. People sitting on the lawn, basking in the sun. And she had painted her room in UNC colors. And she was like, I'll just die. I'll just die if I don't go to UNC. So my husband and I looked at her, well, you just gonna die then, because we don't have UNC money. We got University of Maryland College Park money, but we ain't got UNC money. Oh, she's falling out. Let her fall out. Let them fall out. Because we were not going to take on that money debt. Well, we're Singletary. What if she got into Harvard or Yale? And she's still going to Maryland because we didn't already have the Harvard or Yale money. Now, we make enough that we wouldn't qualify for aid. And some of you may not make enough and you might get some free money, but most people, they don't get a free ride to college. So you go to the next slide for me, please. So under the stimulus measures that have passed, you can, last year, people were allowed to pause paying their federal student loans, not private, federal. And you didn't have to make a payment. And so I was talking to some people and they were still working, still bringing income in, and they took advantage of that. And I was like, well, why would you do that? Why would you not pay your student loan bill? Well, hey, let me take a pause. Well, do you understand that right now those student loans are at 0%? So every dollar that you put on that student loan goes right to knocking down the principal. So technically, if you had done this last year for almost a whole year, and then this year until September, every payment would go right to the principal. So if you got $20,000 or $30,000 and you could put 500 or 1,000, maybe, hopefully, if you're not eating out and you're not going on vacations and stuff like that, you can make a significant dent in that student loan debt. So you should not be taking that pause if you still have your regular income. Now, if you don't have income, you lost your job, take the pause. But if you're still working full time and you're still bringing home the same amount of money, you need to get out of that pause and put some money on those student loans. You can go to the next one for me, please. So here's the thing. So you're like, okay, so how do I pay this debt off? If my kid is coming out of college in May, or maybe, they in an apartment, they got out of school last year and they may be living locally, I truly believe that you ought to let your young adults come home. And you not only let them come home, but encourage them to come back after college if they can, unless they're moved into another state or something like that. My 26-year-old, or soon to be 26-year-old in another month, is right downstairs under here. And we encouraged her. I mean, we begged her to come back home and live, because if she takes almost all of her salary, minus some monthly personal expenses, not a lot, because we pay for food, electricity, and everything, she doesn't have any debt. So I should tell you all that. We sent all three of our kids to college with no debt, nor do we have any debt. And I'll tell you how we did that. But we want her to come home and use all and save up all her paycheck. You know, she did that for about 4 or 5 years. She'd have over 100,000, maybe $120,000 saved. That would be a tremendous down payment on the house. And I'm really trying to get her to live here longer than that and save up enough to pay for her house with cash. Can you imagine that? In her early 30s, right? Because that it would probably be around that. Early 30s. So I know she's like, you probably like, you want to live there? I do. But if she did that, that's a blip in her life. But in her mid 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, she would have no rent, no mortgage payment. That's a game changer. That is a financial game changer. Just to put up with your kid and for them to put up with you for 5 or 6 or 7 years, it's not that long. It'll be gone like that. Right? So you ought to let them, encourage them to come home. You're like, well, they need to learn to be responsible. They can be responsible in your house. In many countries, multi-generations of families live in the same house because they understand, first of all, having all those generations under the same roof, you get to help each other. Grandma can watch the kids and cousin can watch the kids, and you can pool your resources. So if one person in the house or two people have lost their job, you're not forced to having to lose your house or lose your, the roof over your head. So I think we ought to stop saying that when the kids finish college at 18, they got to get out the house and get out. Insane. Because most of the areas that we live in, particularly African Americans, are high cost areas. Everybody can have their own house. It's just not financial sustainable. It's just not. And I'm okay, right? We set up the basement like a little apartment. She got her own entryway. It's working out. And I just think that you ought to think about that. You got a guest room and you don't never want nobody in the guest. What is that about? But Ricky, can you go to the next slide for me? So auto debt. Oh, Lord. Y'all love y'all cars. Oh, y'all love y'all cars. The average car loan is about $551 a month. I know couples spending $1,000 or more on car payments. And now you stretch it out. So you can't do it in 4 years, which is, 48 months. Now you got to do it in 60 months. Now there are 8 and 7 year car loans. Here's a little tip. If you cannot afford that car with a 4-year car loan, 48 months, then you can't afford that car that you get. Simple as that. Simple as that. You just driving away your wealth. And when you buy a car, the moment you purchase it brand new, right, it loses its value 20 to 30% in the first year. That's insane. That's not building wealth. That's driving away wealth. And Ricky, can you go to the next slide for me, please? So one of the things people often ask me is, should I save or should I pay off debt? Should I pay off debt or should I save? Really, you need to do both. It's not an either or situation, right? If you don't have savings and something happens because you've been putting all your money on debt, and that's commendable. I want you to do that. But if you're paying off all your debt and you don't have any savings and a crisis hits, what you gonna do? How you gonna pay anything, right? So you're gonna have to do both. So let's say if you have an extra, I know this is a pretty big number for some of you, but let's say you have an extra $1,000 a month. I would put $500 towards my emergency fund, and I'll tell you something called a life happens fund in a minute, and then put the rest on the debt until you hit a certain baseline. Because I don't want you're not going to save the 3 to 6 months while you're trying to get out of debt, but just enough to get through a major crisis, like a major car repair. And so then you're going to stop and then put all your money towards the debt. So remember, can you go to the next slide? Let me tell you about this. So how do you pay off that debt? So I believe in something called the debt dash. Dave Ramsey calls it the snowball. So basically what you're going to do, you see this who Bolt and now I can't call her name right now. But they did the 100-yard dash in this seconds. And so this is how the debt dash works. So you're going to put your debts smallest to the largest. And that way you can attack that smallest debt. You can you're running fast and get rid of that debt. And what we found is that when people do that, when they and get rid of a little bit of debt, they're like, I can do this. They feel like they've made some progress. They got some distance on them. And so then they end up paying off the debt sooner. And you probably heard do the highest interest rate and all this kind of. No. Smallest to the largest. So you put every extra money that you have on the smallest debt, make the minimum payment on the rest. When you get that debt gone, then you do the next one and the next one and the next one. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So you're going to ignore the interest rate, and you're going to organize your debts from the smallest to the largest, smallest to the largest. And let me show you what that looks like. Can you go to the next slide for me? So this is how it's going to look. So let's say you have 4 debts: a computer loan, a car loan, the rest of your car loan, a credit card debt, and a college loan. So you're going to start with the computer loan for $2,000. Then you'll move down to the $3,000 car loan and the $8,000 and the $20. So you're going to pay the minimum amount on all the other debts except the smallest debt. You got to throw money at it. Now you're in the pandemic. Maybe you've been spending $400 or $500 a month eating out. Now you know you probably spend even more. In a couple months, that debt be gone. As opposed to putting a little bit on the 2 and a little bit on the 3 and a little bit on the 8 and a little bit on the 20. And then you get discouraged because you're not making any progress. So this way you make quick progress and you see a light at the end of that tunnel. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So why the debt dash way? You're like, oh, that math don't make no sense to me, Miss Singletary. Because psychologically, people get defeated by the slow process of paying off debt. Next slide for me, please. So this is all about behavioral modification over math. So I find it so interesting that people want to like come up with these spreadsheets about how to pay off their debt, and you're wrong, and that don't make no sense. And I'm thinking, well, you know what didn't make sense? Well, you rack up all that debt. So, now you're going to use logic. Now you're going to try to pull out some spreadsheet. No. The most important thing in paying off debt is to pay the debts off. And I'm telling you, this is a tried and true method. We've been doing this in our ministry, and you'd be shocked at the number of people. Last year, not discounting 2021, but 2019 and 2020, during the height of the pandemic, we had members in our ministry at Prosperity Partners get rid of over $500,000 in debt by following this system. $500,000 during a pandemic by doing this right here. Next slide for me, please. So here's a real life story. So this is a real life couple in our ministry. They had 8 debts. They had credit card debt and student loans and a car loan, about $43,000. Next one for me, please. And so the wife came in with this binder, and you just like all the spreadsheets, and I just took the binder and threw it on the floor. I said, now you're going to do the debt dash. And so using the debt dash, so on her way, using the highest interest rate first, putting money here and there and here and there, it was going to take them 6 years to pay off that $43,000 in debt. To use the debt dash, $43,000, 13 months gone, and husband wasn't working, and they didn't get any extra money. They just cut their budget, and they did, beans and rice, as Dave Ramsey says. And in 13 months, they had all that debt paid off. And you know how much interest they saved? Because it wasn't going to take 6 years, almost $8,000, $7,800 to be exact, almost $8,000 by following the debt dash method. So you can see, even though we didn't follow the high interest rate method, they still saved a ton of money because they got rid of the debt in a fraction of the time using that other method. Go to the next slide for me, please. So let's talk about budgeting. Oh my gosh, I just love budgeting. Did I tell you I love budgeting? I know how you all are. Y'all just don't like budgeting. Oh, Ms. Singletary, you tell me what I can't do. Oh, I can't face the numbers. Well, how is not knowing working for you, right? I know my budget up and down. I know my budget like I know my husband. I love my husband. My budget and my boo, my 2 favorite loves. And if you embrace these numbers and you know it and you follow this, you can have the prosperity that you desire to have. Next slide for me, please. So my grandmother used to say something called every penny ought to have a purpose. So what does that mean? Every penny ought to have a purpose. You know how you kind of say, well, I had an extra $50. I don't have an extra nothing. I don't even have an extra penny every month. Because every dollar that my husband and I earn, we send it off for a task. We send it off for our retirement plan. We send it off for the college fund. We send it off for our emergency fund. We send it off for this, and we send it off to pay off our mortgage. We make extra principal payments on our mortgage every month, and we've been doing that. So a 30-year loan, we're gonna get rid of it in about 8 years because we just put money. All our money has a purpose. Don't go. It has a job. Go do your job. There's no extra anything. Go do your job. Next slide for me, please. So here's the thing. I love this little ditty. Don't go broke trying to look rich. Act your wage. So making good money and you still living paycheck to paycheck. How is that possible? How are you making good money and you still broke? 25% of American families making $150,000 or more a year live paycheck to paycheck. $150,000 and they still live in paycheck to paycheck. That's because you're trying to look rich, but you need to act your wage. Next one for me, please. So here's the thing. So you probably heard about this thing called an emergency fund. And if I asked you if we were in the sanctuary or the conference room at your church, everybody would like, yeah, I got an emergency fund. No. You don't have an emergency fund. You have a slush fund. You have money that slushes into your emergency fund and it slushes out because this doesn't stay put. Your emergency fund is your dire fund. That's if you lose your job, if you're furloughed, you have a disruption in income. Maybe you become sick or your husband or your children or someone in your family, you've got to leave work for a little bit to take care of them. That's what the emergency fund is. Not for, oh, the dishwasher broke, let me take it out the emergency fund. And so how do you build up an emergency fund? You take everything that it costs to run your household, everything. The cable, telephone, not just your rent and mortgage and the car payment, everything. And you multiply it by the number of times how much you want to save. So recommended is 3 to 6 months. So let's, for example, say it takes about $3,000 to run your household every month. So you need at a minimum 3 times 3. You need that, you multiply that. So 1 month it would be 3, 2 would be 6, and so on. So and then you put that money aside in a bank account and you leave it alone. That's for the next slide for me. So now what I want you to do is I want you to have what I call a life happens fund. That is different from your emergency fund. So the reason why your emergency fund is a slush fund, money slushing in, money slushes out, is because you don't have a life happens fund. Life happens fund, the dishwasher break, your car breakdown, your heater breakdown. If you got children, they always breaking something in your house. My kids always, even at their age, they young 20s, they always breaking something. Who broke the knife? Who broke the toaster? So we don't pull it out of our emergency fund. We pull it out of our life happens fund. And how much do you have in that? It depends on the lifestyle that you have. So we have old cars. So if it's not need to be repaired, it's always $1,200. Why is it always $1,200? I think it's a little book to repair says everything should cost $1,200. So you want to have enough to take care of the kind of things that happen in your house. If you got a fairly new car, you don't need a huge car repair in the life happens fund. But that money is there, so you don't have to tap that emergency fund, which is that's a dire fund. That's the house is on fire kind of fund. Next one for me, please. So the goal of budgeting is to go from, see that little pig? See that little pig? That emaciated pig. So is that your budget? Is that your savings account? Is that what it looks like? But the goal of budgeting is go from that pig to the fat pig. So you can pay your bills, you can save, you can have a rainy day fund, you can save for retirement, you can have money that you can blow every once in a while. Like, okay, so you want a bag of chips? Yeah. You thought I was going to say some Jimmy Choo's or something, right? No, not at all. Next slide for me, please. So next, this is an area I really want to talk to you guys about. Become an informed investor. So there's a lot of investing news right now. The market's up, the market's down. There's Bitcoin, there's GameStop. You're like, but really, investing is kind of actually quite boring. But let me talk to you about some of the threats to this. Go to the next slide for me. So what are the two biggest threats to retirement savings? There's really two major ones. Inflation is the first one. And put another way, this is what inflation is that the price of things go up. So you need to buy milk today and you need to buy milk tomorrow. And your money has to grow so that you can buy that milk tomorrow. So look at it this way. In 1929, for $20, you could get a whole grocery cart full of food. All that food. Look at that. By 1960, oh, half a cart. 2014, not so much. At 2020, eggs and milk. That's inflation, right? And so you can't put the money under the mattress. If you do, can I have your address? Because I got some people in Baltimore. Just let me know when you're not gonna be home. Can't put it in a match. You can't put it in a savings account and can't put it in a CD. They're not going to earn enough. They're not going to keep pace with inflation. They're not designed to do that. So you're going to have to invest. So what's the second threat to saving for investment? Inaction. You know what to do, hopefully, but you don't do it. I love this little cartoon. I'm going to retire and live off my savings. What I'll do the second day, I have no idea. That's because you haven't run your numbers. You might even be putting money in a 401k or 403b or TSP, but you don't know if it's enough. You don't even know what you're investing in. You just heard to put money in that, and that's all you did. You got to do more than that. You got to make sure you understand that and what you're investing in, and are you investing enough? I had a colleague who left the Post and went to the New York Times. And I said, listen, when you leave, you can still call me and text me, and I'm gonna help you out. And so she signed up for the workplace plan. She's a young adult in her early 20s. And so she said, well, I put 4% of my pay into the 401k. I say, that's good, but what's the match? So what I mean by that is, how much is the company adding to that to help you out as an incentive to save for retirement? So she said 6%. So I said, well, baby, why you ain't putting in 6%? Because that's just free money you have just left on the table. That's you already have a return if you take the match. So she should be doing at least 6%. And then I said, Fidelity Investments came up with how much should you be saving for retirement to become a millionaire by the time you retire? And that's 15% of your pay. And that's a combination of your contributions and your company contributions for 15%. But you're like, well, my company don't put nothing in there. Well, okay, I get that. And that's okay that you still should save for your retirement. And that may mean that you're going to have to make different decisions about your money so that you can try eventually to reach that 15%. Next one for me, please. So listen, the earlier you start, so I'm hoping there are young adults on here. And if there isn't, I hope that you show this to them. So the earlier you start to save, the lower amount that you have to save. So if you're at 25, it's 15%. 30 is 18%. By the time you're 35, it's 23%. Who can save 23% of their pay? So the earlier you start, so people are always asking me, well, what should I invest in and what stock should I pick? And if you're a young adult, the greatest benefit you have on your side is time. Ask any older person, time, because you have decades to let that money grow for you. So the sooner you start, the better. Now you're thinking, well, oh my God, I missed that boat. It's still never too late. It just might mean you have to work a little longer, or maybe you're gonna go live with your adult children. You might have to do something. You can't get that bungalow in Florida that you've been dreaming of, but it doesn't mean that you can't retire and have a good retirement. It just means that you're gonna have to adjust your expectations. Next one for me, please. So lastly, and then we're going to be able to take some of your questions, is be content. Now, I know a lot of presentations about money don't really talk about this. And I'm glad that this is a group of people who are believers, because the biggest component of being wealthy, and I don't necessarily mean wealthy in the sense of a lot of stuff. I mean financial security. I mean that if you get to the point when you're older, your late 50s and 60s, and you're like, I'm so done with this, that you can leave and you can retire with some security, that you can send your children to college debt free. Did you know that you actually can buy a car with cash? Did you know that? Did you know that? My husband and I haven't had a car payment in, let's see, we've been married 30 years, probably 25 years or something like that. You only need one car loan. Starting out, I get it that you might not have the money, but you only need one car loan. In your adult life, you only need one car note. Because if you get that car note 48 months, once you pay off that car, you continue to make those car payments to yourself, right? Because you already used to it in your budget. And if you did that and then you kept your car for 10 or 15 years, yes, I said it, 10 or 15 years, you have more than enough to buy the next car. And then you continue to make those car payments. So then in another 10 or 15 years, you'll have the money for another car. My husband, we just bought an Avalon, what is it, I think it was a 2020, I think it was 2020 Avalon or whatever, brand new, because we can, cash. And how did we do it? We paid those car payments to ourselves because we had our car for about 14 years, I think it was at that point. Made the payments and we invested it because we had 14 years. And we took the investment returns because we had a really good return, average about 8 to 10% over that time, pay cash for that car. I don't even know what it's like to have a car note. And then we'll never have another car note. Never, never, never. Our young adult children each have a car because, they're in school and, jobs and stuff like that, cash. We bought them used, a couple $1,000s. They don't even know it's like car. And the best thing about it is my daughter who's living with us, I told you who's living with us. She came to me the other day. I was so proud. Oh my God, I was so proud. She said, Mommy, when I turn 30, because she's about to turn 26, I want to get a car. And okay, because the car she had since she was like 16. So, it's old. And I said, okay. And she said, Mommy, I'm going to pay cash for it. And so she said, can you help me figure out how much I need to save every month for the next 4 years so I can buy my car with cash? So I have a 20-year-old who will never know what it's like to have a car note her entire adult life. That is game changing. She will never have a car note. So that money she can take and put in her retirement and savings. And she's a therapist. She's got a master's degree in social work. And you know what that makes, right? It's not 6 figures, but she's helping people. And we're so proud that that's the career she chose because she has a heart to do that. And how can she live off of that salary? She's living at home for a while to save, and she's not going to have no car payment. That's what it takes to have prosperity. So 2 things happen. She creates financial prosperity for herself, and she's also doing something that God intended for her to do. So the last one on that step of those 5 steps, be content. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So what I need you to do is get rid of your entitlement mentality. And what does that mean? So here's a lie that you tell yourselves. You deserve better. You deserve more. You deserve it all. So I deserve more. I deserve more. I work hard. I deserve this vacation. Pre-pandemic, that's what you were saying. It didn't matter that you couldn't afford to go to the Caribbean, to Jamaica, Aruba, or Hawaii, wherever you was going. It didn't matter that you couldn't because you got student loan debt, you got a car note and all that kind of stuff. It didn't matter. You work hard. I don't doubt that you do, but that's a lie. That's an entitlement mentality. Here's the truth. You deserve what you can afford. And here's the ultimate truth from scripture. Philippians 4:19 says, and my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Jesus Christ. Now we say that, we know that scripture. We know Philippians. He will supply all my needs, but you don't really believe that. Because if you did believe that, then you would moan and groan when I tell you can't take a vacation. Once all this pandemic stuff happens, you act like you can't stay home. Listen, I live in Prince George's County. We have a wonderful park called Walker Park. Walk around the park. Feed the ducks if you got debt. Feed the ducks if you got debt. And then when it's gone, you can go wherever you want to go. Next one for me, please. Next slide for me. So the next entitlement mentality, the lies that you tell to yourself and to your kids, I owe it to my kids. And look at that little bubble. This is your kid. I want it now, but all my friends have it. I want more. If you love me, you get it from me. I know if you're a parent, you've heard that. I've heard that. But the truth is you owe it to yourself and or your children to live within your means. Philippians, we're going to go right back to Philippians 2:3. The NIV version. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. Because all that stuff is really being selfish. And you're like, what? These are my kids. They need it. And a lot of it comes from how you grew up. You grew up poor. So you like say things like, I don't want my kids to go without. Oh, I want my kids to go without. I want them to suffer. Not suffer. Suffer. I do. Because guess what? When they become young adults and they have their own salary, they can't live like they've been living with you because you got money. Hopefully, you have a good career and you've got some money coming in. They can't live the life that you're living when they start out, but that's what you've been teaching them. Doesn't matter if you have enough. You're going to live the American dream on borrowed money. And so you want to pull back from them. You do. And one of the ways we did it with our children is we have rules in our house. It's so funny. So one of the rules when they were growing up is because, television commercials tell them all the stuff that they should get. And so we had a rule in our house that if you saw something on a television commercial, you could not get it. So don't come to us and say you can't get it. Nope, nope, nope. Television commercial, can't get it. And what that did was it helped them to develop their own interests, not dictated by some marketing machine. Like people would buy my son trucks all the time because boys like trucks. But my son would rather you give him a book. And the girls like the color. They didn't want a bunch of dolls. And so, but they see the doll or they see the truck or they see something on television. So my youngest, who at the time I think was about 7 or 8 years old, she was watching television. I was in the kitchen cooking and I saw she was watching and I saw what was on the television. And so she come running into the kitchen, mommy, can I have, whatever it was. Mommy, can I have? I said, where'd you see it? Now my kid is pretty smart and she knows the rule. So she was like, ooh, I'm trapped. So she stopped. She thought about it. She closed her eyes. She tilted her head up and she said, it came to me in a dream. I said, you better sit your little behind down. You ain't getting whatever you talking about. Go on away from me. My husband and I never had an issue with saying no to our children because we knew that we needed to send them to college. All that money that they were asking for, all the things they had to have to be like their friends, and we needed to put it in their college. Now, I will admit that we had to put a deadbolt on our bedroom door so they didn't come in and smother us in our sleep. But I'm going to tell you one thing. We have one who's gone through all the way, including her master's degree. We paid for her master's degree. And when she got her undergraduate degree, they don't tell you this while it's happening. But she said after this, that she was so grateful that we paid for her and she had no student loans because all her friends were talking about Sally Mae, that in 6 months, Sally Mae gonna come after me. Because, when you finish, maybe you don't know, but when you finish college, you have about 6 months grace period before those payments kick in. And they were saying to her, we got 6 months, then it's over, we got 6 months. And she said, mommy, I didn't have to worry about that. I had to worry about no Sally Mae or Nellie Mae or nothing. I had to worry about nobody's Mae. And she said, I'm really grateful for that. I'm sorry. She just said to her, she apologized. She said, I'm sorry that I hounded you and nagged you for so much stuff because this means more. And I'm glad that you said no. And it was not hard saying no when they see their other friends have stuff. It was not hard. I mean, it was hard. It was very hard. I mean, I know people know me as maybe being a miser, which I'm not. I am a penny pincher, but I'm not a miser. But we knew that it would be better for us and her to take that money to make sure that she could go for what she wanted as a career and not have any debt. So you got to stop lying to yourself that you don't owe them anything like that. You owe them financial security. And that is the greatest gift that you can give your children. Next slide for me, please. So the entitlement mentality, you have to get rid of that entitlement voice. This is the voice in your head. I will do whatever it takes to get what I want. So you're going to stretch out that car note for 6 and 7 years. You're going to get the lowest monthly payment so you can afford whatever it is that you're trying to buy. But I need you to change that internal dialogue to, I'll do whatever it takes to get what I need and want, but not at the expense of being financially irresponsible. And Luke 12:15 says, then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in abundance of possessions. And yet, there it is right there in scripture. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. If you had walked in the closet of my children, that half the closet would be empty. Half, they had a couple pairs of shoes. And you're like, what? Yes. They only had one pair of feet. And they little people, where they gonna go? Why they need more than a couple pair of shoes? Who are they trying to impress? Who am I trying to impress? Right? And one time I'll tell you this quick story, and then I know I'll take your questions. So my littlest one, I bought her some sort of shoes and she didn't want them. I don't know. They might have had some character on it. You know how the children decide they like something, they don't like it. She didn't want to wear her sneakers. So she only had 2 pairs of shoes at a time. She had a pair for school with sneakers and Sunday shoes. That's it. Because she's a little person. What does she need more than 2 pair for? And so she didn't want to wear these sneakers. And I'm like, well, that's the only pair of sneakers you have. So I put them in her little bag. And she got mad at me because she didn't want to wear them. I said, okay, well, you're just going to be in your stocking feet. So I sent her to school, dropped her off in her little stocking feet. And all the other parents are looking at me like, what is wrong with that? I said, well, she didn't want to wear the one pair she had. So that's what and then, you know what? By recess, she put them shoes on. Yes, she did. And then one time, somebody went home. They take their sneakers off during, play or whatever, so they don't, they went to a Montessori school, so they're sitting on the rug. And my kid had the same pair of sneakers as another kid, but that kid's sneakers were much larger, so they mixed them up. And the other kid took my kid's sneakers home. So I called the school back. I said, you need to call that other parent because I need my kid's sneakers. So the office secretary smiled out. It was like, well, can't you just let them wear something else till Monday? I said, no, I cannot, ma'am, because that's his only pair of sneakers. How could that be? Only pair of sneakers? Well, because it's the only pair of sneakers he got. Can you please call that parent and tell them to bring my kid's shoes back to the school? And she huffing and puffing, but she sure did call that parent, and they sure did bring my kid's shoes. I'm like, what would I look like going out to buy a pair of sneakers? Because somebody else's kid took my kid's shoes. Give my kid his shoes. Yes, I did. You can judge me if you want to. I don't care. I actually don't care. Because the point is that they need a lot. And you got to stick to what you believe is true. It says right there. We didn't need an abundance of possessions. My kids didn't need a whole bunch of shoes. We lived through it. They lived through it. And you guess what? They are great money managers. Oh, they so good. In fact, they cheaper than I am. I got to try to talk them into buying stuff now. Next slide for me, please. So what one question will save you a lot of money? It's just one question, really. So there's the iPhone and the North Face. Oh, can I tell y'all a joke about the North Face? I wish you were here, in person. So my oldest, I tell you all these stories. My oldest, this was the phase of the North Face. I don't know if your parents, but there was a phase where everybody had a North Face jacket. My kid wanted a North Face, but I'm not buying no North Face jacket. You know how much that starts? I said, no, we can buy Target. So she was like, I said, you know what? Can we buy a jacket? can we buy a sweatshirt from Target and then I face you north? She didn't think it was funny. But look at all the sneakers and the Ugg boots and I know there's some bargain shoppers on here, and you're like, oh, well, I don't pay a lot of money. I'm a great bargain shopper. You know what? Write this down. Write it down. Writing it down. Got a pencil, got paper. You never save when you spend. That's worth the price you paid for this workshop. You never save when you spend. So all that money you quote unquote saving, unless you are taking that difference and going right to the bank, you're not saving. You're just spending less. So when you go in and you went in to buy one pair of sneakers, they got a sale that says, you know what? If you buy one, you can get the second one half off. And you think, oh, I got a deal. No, you didn't. They just got a sucker. Because you only went in to buy one pair of sneakers. Now you got 2 pairs of sneakers. Now maybe you didn't pay the full price for that second one, but you spent more money than you intended to, and that is not a sale. And guess what? Truth be told, they priced those both sneakers so that you really still paid the right price. They just mark them down and mark them up and make you think that you're saving. You never save when you spend. Next one for me, please. So what's the one question? You probably guessed it already. Is it a need or is it a want? Is it a need or is it a want? I learned that from my grandmother. She said that every time you go to buy something, you ask yourself, is it a need or is it a want? So a need it means you need something because it's essential or very important. A want, you just have a desire to possess it. But we have merged what a need and a want is, right? Our wants have become our needs. right? Right? Things that you say you need, but you don't really need. And right now, because so many of us are working home, Amazon just lives at your house. Oh, I need this for this, or I need this rug. And no, you don't. If you were at work, you wouldn't need it because we confused it. So you need to ask yourself every time you go buy something, is this a need or is this a want? And if you ask yourself that question, you'll find most of the time it's a want. Contentment is so huge to prosperity. The more content you are, the less you'll spend. The more you'll redirect that money to the things that truly matter. Paying off your debt, sending your kids to college, paying off your mortgage before you retire, keeping the car and not having car notes. That's what's going to bring you. And I think, and then if you free yourself from all of this burden of debt and bills and stuff, think about how much more that you can serve, right? That you won't be so stressed about money that you don't have time to serve our God, right? You have this big house, but you're never home because you got to work so hard to keep this big house. You're never with your kids because you got to work all those extra hours. When what do they need? They don't need the presents. They need your presence, right? They need you with them. And all of you ripping and running and taking your kids to all these sports events because you want them to win a sports scholarship and all this kind of stuff, running and ragging, running yourself ragged. And your kids are not even enjoying the sport, right? Because you're just trying to get money because you haven't mastered the art of saving to send your own kid to college or whatever it is that you need to do. Next one for me, please. And then I'm going to wrap it up. Here's a giant step to financial freedom. I love this phrase. Rich people stay rich by living like they're broke. Broke people stay broke by living like they're rich. Which one are you? Next one for me, please. From entitlement to contentment, establish a reasonable standard of living, establish priorities, establish a habit of being grateful. I'm so grateful for what I have. And I'll tell you one thing, my pastor, John K. Jenkins Sr., one Sunday, he was preaching about contentment. And he asked the question. He said, he asked us, what do we value, right? And he said, how many of you are rich? And we looking around like, I ain't rich. We looked at my neighbor, I ain't rich. And so he asked, how many of you rich? And I'm going to ask you guys, but I know I can't see you, but just wherever you are, just raise your hand if you're rich. I want to just, are you rich? And so in the church of thousands of people, only a couple of hands went up. And my pastor was like, So then he asked a series of questions. And he said, how many of you got up this morning and could get a glass of water? All the hands went up. And he said, how many of you could have a meal today or two? One of you probably shouldn't. All the hands went up. He said, how many of you could go to the closet and decide what to wear? More hands went up. He said, how many of you got to church here because you had a transportation? Hands went up. He said, how many of you have a job? Hands went up. He said, how many of you have somebody who loves you? Hands went up. He said, then how come you don't think you're rich? And I had to check myself because my hand didn't go up before he asked all those questions. And I truly came from a situation where I knew hunger. Like my mother and my father left us in the house with no food, went off to do whatever they were doing. A mattress on the floor, we sitting on the mattress, no food in the refrigerator. So I actually know what it's like to be hungry. And here I am in this house with this bookcase behind me, 4 or 5 bedroom house, cars for each of us in the house. Wonderful husband, great job for the Washington Post. And I didn't raise my hand. My. What would God think of me? What does he think about you? When you can't consider yourself rich. And there are people in this world who don't even know where their next meal is going to come from. They don't have a closet full of clothes. They don't have so many shoes that they could wear a pair of shoes for 2 or 3 months and not repeat. They don't have a job. They don't have somebody who loves them. They don't have children, right? I mean, they say they're a blessing, even though they get on your nerves. There's some people who can't have kids. They would love to have kids. So you are already rich. And if you adopt that posture, you won't want so much. And if you don't want so much, you'll have the money to save and build wealth and be able to serve. Because that's really what this is kind of all about, y'all. Because how can we bring people to God if they look at us and we all broke and miserable? Then why would they want to follow that God? Because his people are broke and miserable, right? Next slide for me, please, Reverend Ricky. So 5 steps to thrive during a financial crisis. Triage your budget. Be careful with credit. Stick to a budget. Become an informed investor. And be content. It's really that simple, y'all. It really is. Thank you so very much. And I did want to have so go to the next slide for me, Reverend Ricky. So a PSA for me. I hate this. I'm so tired of this. But I do have a new book coming out in the spring called What to Do with Your Money When Crisis Hits. And it's a lot like kind of this workshop. Lots of stories, lots of encouragement, with lots and lots of resources. And this is a book for somebody starting out, somebody who's still good with their money. You can pass it on and maybe learn something. And for old and young, and it would help me tremendously if you pre-ordered. Apparently, that's a big thing. It would help the publisher because, you know, they don't have a lot of books by people who look like me, especially financial books. So the more books I can sell, the more authors they will take on who look like me. So it'd be greatly appreciated if you pre-order, and the books will be either shipped or delivered by May 18th. And you can get it anywhere you can get books these days. Independent booksellers, Black booksellers, Google Play, Apple Books, Amazon, ebook. But if you would pre-order it, I'd be very much appreciative because I think this is a great book. It's like a FAQ, so it's very accessible. It's not over anybody's head, and you can skip around. But I think it will provide a lot of really good information and something that you might want to buy for yourself and the people in your family. So if you would do that for me, I'd be so grateful. I can finish sending those other 2 kids to college. And now we'll open it up for questions. So Melissa, take it away.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. And if people are typing it in the chat, Reverend Ricky, I can't quite see if there are questions coming up. Can you see from your end?
Yep, there should be questions on the screen now. If you're able to see the screen we're on.
That's a really good, it's sort of more like that's a really good question. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback.
I think it's Miss Melissa's background. Yep, I'll read this in the meantime. It says from Lisa Copeland, I sent my oldest to college with a 529. She decided not to finish, so I rolled it over to my youngest, who is 5 years old. Is a 529 the best way to save for college?
I think it is. I definitely think it is. And you might be surprised that later, when your oldest realizes that they're going to need a college degree, they may come back and say, hey, Mom, I need some help. Now, you might decide to do it or not. But absolutely, we save for all 3 of our children in a 529 plan. We set up a plan for each child and save from the time they were little wee people. And we had enough to send them to state school, all 3 of them. Now, the 2 girls won significant scholarships, so we didn't have to use as much money. So my youngest, actually, we had quite a bit of money left over. So we told them that we'll pay for their master's program. And so we will pay for that. And if there's any money left over, that it's hers to keep. So check this out. So she's got a scholarship, she won a scholarship, full scholarship. We paid for the first year, that she won a full scholarship for the last 3. And because she's studying to be a teacher. So she won a teacher's scholarship from Maryland. and she can take that money and also go to grad school. So we told her that if she does that, now she's got to commit to work for the school system. So we don't want to obligate her. It would be 7 years. So we didn't want to lock her in there, but she's okay with the 3 years for undergrad. So she's got a choice right now. She could take that and commit to work in underserved schools for 7 years, or use the money that we saved in the 529 plan. But if she takes a scholarship, all that money that is left over is hers to keep. Now we've got to pay taxes on it, but we don't have to pay the penalty because she won a scholarship. So that money is hers, and it's a significant amount. And so she's just like, what do I do? But she's got an option. And so you did exactly right. You shifted it to another child. And if, say, the 5-year-old decides to do the same thing, you can shift it to another relative in your family or for yourself. So I believe that it is a good way, because what a 529 plan is, you put money in after tax, it grows, and if you pull it out and pay it for qualified education expenses, the money is not taxed. That's a great way to save.
Here's the next question. If I have a $6,000 gift for my child, should I put it in a Roth Act?
So there would be a Roth IRA.
Yep.
And I actually, so you could do either or. You could put it into a 529 plan, or you could put it into a Roth. And the thing about a Roth is you put money in after tax. It grows, and then you don't have to pay. You pay tax because you've already paid taxes on that money. If that's a gift, I don't know if you have to pay taxes on that. But with a Roth, you have to have earned income. So if you're going to put it in your child's name, that child has to have earned income up to $6,000. So that child probably does not have that. So I would put it into the 529 plan.
Last question from Lisa. Should I keep all my funds in different banks? Savings, emergency fund, LHA, Life Happens Fund. I'm messing up the acronym here.
No, that's okay. It is Life Happens Fund. So the savings, emergency fund, Life Happens Fund, all kind of pots. So I'm a pot person. Not that kind of pot y'all think about. Not that. I don't do that. That's cost money. I don't do that. So I'm a pot person. I like to have my money in different places because I wanted to have a certain job. And so my emergency money is in a different pot because that's the emergency pot. My Life Happens money is in a different pot because that's pot. It drives my husband a little crazy because he's like, well, can't we take money out of this? I said, no, that's the pot over there. No, he said, but honey, it's all the same money. I'm like, that's the vacation pot. You can't take the vacation pot to buy a refrigerator. So we have several different accounts. That's me. If you can keep it all together and not pilfer from it. Now, many people can't do that though. Melissa probably can because she is super disciplined. So sometimes having that money away, you definitely don't want to keep your emergency fund, your Life Happens Fund in your household account. That's way too tempting. So just set up. We have a regular banking and credit union accounts because credit union accounts are really, they don't charge you. You can keep it there, and we don't keep a debit card around for the emergency fund or Life Happens Fund. We just put it over there, and if we need money, we pull it out electronically. So the only debit card I have is the household debit card. So if you're comfortable with that and you're not paying any fees every month, and there's a way to do that, look for bank accounts with no monthly fees. Sometimes you have to keep a certain minimum in there. I'm a big pot person. I think it's very effective to sort of compartmentalize your savings. If it's too complicated for you, you at least should have, I believe, at least 2 or 3 accounts. So your household account where you pay all your bills, the emergency fund, which is that dire fund, and a Life Happens Fund. So at least 3. If you want a savings connected to the household, that would be 4. Now I've got more than that. But if you want to keep it simple, I would say at least have those pots. I find that to be very effective so that you're not dipping into, if you've got all your money in one account, it's too tempting to spend it.
Miss Melissa, you want to try to take it now? Let's see if we can get you going.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. We do have another question. It says, thank you for sharing your wealth and knowledge, Ms. Singletary. But the question is, what advice would you give for a new homeowner in 2021?
So I think the biggest thing is first make sure that you don't take on a lot of debt. Especially if it could be a new house or a used house, somebody else lived there, but you want all the furniture, you want to fix it up, and you go into debt. Please, don't do that. Really pay cash as you go along. If that means you're sitting on the floor eating, then you're sitting on the floor eating. And then I would also encourage you to work towards getting rid of that mortgage early. And so, as I told you, that my husband and I make a principal payments every single month on our mortgage, and that could be $50, it could be $100. So that and if you make one extra mortgage payment a year, you knock several years off of a 30-year, you make about 3 years off of a 30-year mortgage. Now imagine if you make 2 or 3, and every month, and that reduces your interest costs. So our goal is not to take a mortgage into retirement. So that's what you want to do. You may be a homeowner, but do not take that mortgage into retirement, because your mortgage, your housing is the biggest expense. So imagine if you got rid of that before you retire, how much more you could live off of your retirement savings if you don't have that huge housing cost. You'll still have taxes and insurance, but you won't have that bulk of that housing.
That literally addresses the next question. So that is a perfect segue for the next question. Do you want to add any feedback to that? I know you comprehensively.
Yeah, I would absolutely say. Now, I will say this as a caveat. You don't want to pay off your house without any savings. So you don't want to be what they call house rich and cash poor, meaning all your money is trapped in your house. Because that you need money to live, you need money to get a car, you need money to fix the roof. So if all your money is in equity, how do you pull that equity out? You got to get a loan. And so you want to make sure that as we are making principal payments, we're still saving for retirement. We still put money in the kids' college fund. We still had an emergency fund. So in our earlier years, we weren't making huge principal payments on our mortgage. But now that the kids are pretty much through college, we've saved enough for them. They're fine. We have met our retirement goals. Our retirement pots are fat and doing well. So now we've, at the last probably 10 years or so, we increased that principal payment so that we will be mortgage free by the time we retire, if not sooner. I'm hoping in 2 years. My husband's like, yeah, what's the rush? I'm like, I hate that. Don't you know I hate that? But we will not take a mortgage into our retirement. I absolutely think that you should pay it off before you retire.
There's a follow-up question there. It says, should I keep the second property for rental income?
You can if it's paid off. I mean, I'm the wrong person to ask about this, because I think most people go into having rental properties. They don't really know what they're doing. They're really not making as much money as they think they are. And the last housing crisis, the Great Recession, showed that people had a house, they bought a bigger house, they kept the first house, and they had 2 mortgages. So everything was fine when their tenants was paying the mortgage. The tenants lost their job. They lost their job, or maybe just the tenants, and they couldn't handle both mortgages. I believe that if you're going to have rental property, you should pay for cash for it, pay it off, and then sure, keep it if you want to do that. I personally don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to have to worry about fixing nobody's toilet. So right now, I put money in a growth index fund. I put my money in low-cost index funds, and that's called passive income, because I passively don't have to do nothing for nobody. My money works for me, and I ain't got to work nothing for my money. That's me. I just don't believe, and real estate should be a small part of your investment portfolio anyway. Just like everything else, it should be diversified.
Okay, that's the last question that's listed. For our family that's watching live, you have about 4 minutes to ask a question from this wealth of financial literacy that is available to us. And I will just add in this moment to Ms. Michelle Singletary, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I will tell you, based on the comment section, I'm seeing a lot of thank yous. People are saying that this is great information, that this was an awesome workshop. There are hearts of gratitude and appreciation.
I see it, Pat, Henry. Thank you all.
Absolutely. And so these expressions of appreciation are genuine, because the knowledge that you have shared is just deeply helpful. So thank you for sharing with our church family and our community. Here's Lisa Bailey saying thank you, and just thanks for your contribution. So no other comments have come in. Will you share some closing words with us as we prepare to close our time today?
Yeah, I sure will. And I'm going to end with a prayer as well. I should have began with a prayer, but I just want to get right into the information. I will just say this is a tough time for a lot of people. And a lot of people have lost hope. And maybe you lost a lot of stuff that you accumulated, or maybe you were struggling even before the pandemic. And I will say that God is still with you and he still has your back. And lots of us in the Christian community will say, well, God will make a way. But I will point you to Ephesians where we talk about the whole armor of God. And one of the scriptures just before all of that, it says, after you've done all that you can, then you stand. And that's what God says, right? Do your part, right? I'm going to be here the whole time, but I'm going to need you to do your part. I'm going to need you to not be in a lot of debt. I'm going to need you to save. I'm going to need you to understand the difference between a need and a want. I'm going to need you to say no to your kids. After you've done all that you can, then stand on my word and I will be there with you. And I truly believe that. I really do that. And through all the stuff in my life that's happened, and there have been some good times and bad times. I've always been good with money, but all kinds of stuff happens. I know that God was still with me, but I had to do my part. You can't just pray and not say. You can't just pray and just God is not going to shower me some money down from the heavens. However, it happens time and time again. When you do all that you can, God says, listen, I'm looking to and fro to see who's doing what. And why should I give you more when you're not doing well with what I already gave you? I've given you some manna and you ain't done nothing with that manna. So why am I give you more? So he's looking, the moment you start doing things God's way, like in Proverbs, you're not a borrower anymore. The wicked vow and don't pay, all those things, when he talks about in Proverbs being a Proverbs woman and working hard and all that stuff. When you do all that stuff, because that's what he says, after you've done all that you can, stand, and God will be there for you. So don't lose hope, but you gotta do more. Prayer is important. It's gotta be key, but it takes more than faith. Faith without works is dead, right? So I'll just leave you with that.
Time off with a word.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
So if I could just pray for you all, I just want to take this to the Lord and just, God, thank you. Thank you for all that you've given us. Even if I've lost my job, God, I thank you for the income that I had before I lost it. And if I have my job and I've not been doing well with my money, God, I ask you, forgive me for not handling your money the way that I should. And God, I know that things are happening right now and we're scared and we're worried and there's so much to pay for, but we know that when we do all that we can, that you will be there for us. So God, I ask for everyone who's listening now live and who might listen now later, I just ask that you put a hedge of protection around them from the COVID. God, I ask that you increase their territory, Lord, that once they commit to follow your word and saving and get rid of debt and be generous and tithe and know that everything that we have is because of you. So I ask that you shower everybody who's listening, live or later, with your blessings, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey, family, thank you all for being on. Let's share our love and appreciation in the comment section for Miss Michelle Singletary for leading this spiritual growth and self-care workshop. What greater way to care for ourselves than to care for the financial harvest that God provides for us. Miss Melissa, any words from you before we go?
Just one final thought. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. Okay. I want to make sure that people know to check the bulletin that we are going to have a Prosperity Partner Ministry from March 13th to April 10th. It's 5-week session from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. So check the bulletin to see how you can sign up.
Just quickly, will you two give some context to what the Prosperity Partner Ministry is. The folks that are on now are the folks who are interested in living their financial life in a kingdom way. And so can you speak to, just briefly, kind of what someone can benefit from becoming associated with the Prosperity Partner Ministry?
I'm gonna let you go, Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of the things that Michelle touched on today. So we're going to talk about topics like entitlement and how do we get to the place where we are, and thinking about our backstory and how we make decisions. And then we move forward and we help you develop a budget and, get involved in the debt dash so that you can pay off debt, and then work your way to a place where you're saving more money and really practicing the godly principles and being great stewards for everything that God has blessed us with. And so that's what people can, if they sign up, they'll learn through the 5 weeks how to do these things that Michelle has talked about tonight.
How do we sign up for Prosperity Partners? Is that Eventbrite?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
You can go onto the bulletin. The information is in the bulletin, so you can sign up through Eventbrite.
Perfect. What we will do immediately after this live, we will get with our social media team on Facebook and Instagram, joining the Prosperity Partner Ministry. And the way to do that will be posted live. Y'all double back. I'll get them to do it in the next few minutes, and we'll get folks plugged into the resource. I believe that the Word of God and the kind of information we got today is just like an outlet, and our souls and our lives and our intellects are just like our phones and electronic devices that without plugging into the source of the power, then we can be filled with potential and never realize it just because we've not plugged in. Listen, ma'am and sir, plug into the Prosperity Partner Ministry, because there's information that's available that is going to mature our lives financially. One more time, thank you to Miss Michelle Singletary for your time, your labor of love tonight. Thank you, Sister Melissa Grant, for leading our church and our local community at St. John Baptist Church in pursuing God's way of managing our finances. Hey, everybody, good night. Thank you for your time. Listen, y'all click share. Let somebody know we had Michelle Singletary. Wow, this was incredible. Everybody have a great night. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good night. Good night. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Reverend River.